Hello students, welcome back. In the last session, we have discussed debugging in Python. In today's session, we will discuss exceptions in Python. We have already studied about exceptions in Java programming language. So exception, it is a runtime condition which leads to program termination. So in today's session, we will study about exceptions in Python. So let's start. An exception is usually defined as something that does not conform to the norms and is therefore somewhat rare. There is nothing rare about exceptions in Python. They are everywhere. Virtually every module in the standard Python library uses them, and Python itself will raise them in many different circumstances. We have already seen some of the exceptions when we executed some example programs in the previous session. For example, if I open the shell and if I type, say, test is equals to 1, 2, 3, I am creating a list, and if I try to access an element from a list, say test of 0, now you can see it is displaying the element at position 0, that is 1, right? Test of 0, index value I am passing to it, it is displaying an element at index position 0. But if I type, that is test of 3, you can see what it is displaying. It is simply giving us an exception. So what it is saying, press back most recent call, last file, line number in the module, test 3, and what exception it is throwing? Index error, list index out of range. So index which we have passed here, that is 3, it is out of range, and in such cases it throws an exception. If something is not according to norms, Python will automatically raise an exception for it. As you can see in this example also, we are trying to access an index which is out of bound, which does not exist, and Python automatically throws an exception, that is index error. Handling exceptions. Now whenever an exception is raised, the program terminates, or we can say the program crashes in between, and we need to go back to our code and we need to figure out what went wrong. When an exception is raised that causes the program to terminate, we say that an unhandled exception has occurred, or an unhandled exception has been raised. And as you can see, when an exception occurs, the program simply stops at that point, and that is not desirable in all situations, and that is the reason we need to handle the exception in the program. An exception does not need to lead to program termination. And exceptions, when raised, can and should be handled by the program. And if you know that a line of code might raise an exception when executed, you should handle the exception. So whenever we write the code and if we feel some line of code may generate some exception, we need to handle the exception, or we need to include the code in the exception block, so that when an exception occurs, that should not lead to the program termination. Now Python provides us with some keyword which can be used to handle exception. In Python we have keyword that is try and except, which is used to handle the exception. These keywords you can say are similar to the keywords which are used in Java programming language also. In Java programming language, to handle exceptions we use keywords like try and catch. In Python the keywords which are used are try and except. Again, even Python has some predefined exceptions which can be used in the except block. Now look at this example. So the code here it is, success failure ratio is equals to number of successes divided by number of failures, that is converted into float. Then we are printing the success failure ratio is success failure ratio, the variable name. If this code has been included without the try and except block, if we consider that, these two lines will execute most of the time without any problem, but it will fail if number of failures, the variable number of failures happens to be 0. If the variable number of failures, if it is happens to be 0, this code may fail, it may raise an exception. The attempt to divide by 0 will cause the Python runtime system to raise a 0 division error exception, and the print statement will never be reached. Now once the exception occurs, the code after the exception is not executed. If the exception occurs at this point, the program crashes and the statements after the exceptions are not executed, remember. So whenever we feel like a code may throw an exception, we need to always include it inside the try and except block. Now you can see in this example we have included that code inside the try. You can see the syntax of try. So try colon and syntax of except, which is used to catch the exception, except the name of an exception. The name here it is 0 division error. And we have some set of lines inside the except block which are executed when there is an exception. If the number of failures, if it is greater than 0 or if it is not equals to 0, the program will work fine without any problem. It will simply assigns some value to success failure ratio and that will be printed, and from that particular point it goes to the print statement after the except block, and that print statement will be the statement inside the print will be displayed. Now if number of failures happens to be 0, then it will raise an exception, that is 0 division error, and from this particular point the control is transferred to the except block, and in the except block it will verify the exception which is raised with the exception which is handled. Exception which is raised, it is 0 division error, and exception which is handled here, it is also 0 division error. So in that case it will execute no failures, so the success failure ratio is undefined, and it will also go to the statement print that prints now here. So if you don't want a program to terminate abruptly in between, then we always have to handle an exception in the program. And exception in Python can be handled by using try and except keyword. Finger exercise. So this is an homework program for you. So implement a function that meets the specifications given below. Use a try and except block. Now you have to write a function. The function is sum digits, which takes one argument, and the specification for the function, it is given here, what you should include in the function that has been given. We assume that the s which is received in the sum digit, it is a string, returns, and the function returns the sum of the decimal digits in s. So this s may contain numbers and alphabets or any other characters, but we should return the sum of the digits which are there in s. For example, if s is a2b3c, the function sum digit should return 5, that is the addition of digits 2 and 3. So it should only add the digits which are there in the string, and it should return the addition of it. So you have to write the function sum digits. Here only specification is given, what should be there in the function, what we should do in the function, but you have to write the actual code to calculate summation of decimal digits in s. For example, if I call a function sum digits and in bracket if I pass a string that is ab12c3, then the function sum digit, what it should do, it should only add the digits from the string, that is 1, 2 and 3. So the addition will be 3 plus 2, that is 5 plus 1, 6. So sum digit should return a value that is 6, and for that you have to write the program, and you have to use try and except block in the program. Okay, we will stop here today. We will continue with handling exceptions in Python even in the next session. In today's session we will stop here. Thank you.